Hi, welcome or welcome back. My name is Eleanor, and today I'm coming home to poetry. It's sort of like coming home to a family that you love very much, but the minute you walk in the door, you realize how annoying they are. It's hard to talk about poetry. It's hard to find poetry that you love. It's hard to know why you love the poetry that you love. And it is often easier to be snarky. I don't want to be snarky. I don't want to be categorical. I am talking about poetry thanks to Emily from Linguist Library because she mentioned in a comment in my last video that it would be interesting if I did a video on my 10 favorite poets. And that, got me got me in a bit of a tizzy, I guess, because I wasn't sure who my favorites are. And I wasn't sure, I'm going through a stage where I'm not even sure I like poetry. I was thinking a lot about poets that I would turn to right now. Who would I turn to right now? And so I came up, interestingly and surprisingly, with Nahum Weinberg. I already did a little bit of a video, well, a part of a video on his book a couple of years ago, and I'll link that. He's a Dutch poet. And then I picked up James Schuyler, who is someone I always go back to, never fails. And then because I'm thinking of doing a course on Emily Dickinson, that course mentioned the Pocket Emily Dickinson book, edited by Brenda Hillman. And look how cute, it's so cute. And so even though I have Emily Dickinson's poems, the collected poems, I thought this might offer a nice package in which to read her. It's just small and manageable. Excuse my greyhound who's shaking in the background and huffing and puffing because I need to take him for a walk. So let's do this quickly. So I'm thinking about all of this. Thank you, Emily. I'm thinking about procrastinating. So I go and procrastinate and I watch a video by Willow. I think it's called, the channel is called Willow Reads. Willow has just reread The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe and has a very enthusiastic video, again linked below. And Willow just goes crazy about the rhyme and the rhythm, and the commentary, the comments are all filled with great excitement. How great is rhyme? How great is rhythm? And to be frank, it's very hard to find a contemporary poet who's writing with a lot of really successful rhyme, who's even trying to rhyme. And the word is that if you are a poet writing in rhyme, you're never going to get published. This is what people in the know say. So I thought that was interesting. So I meant to go into Edgar Allan Poe because it's October and there's some sort of a tag, I think, or tradition of reading Edgar Allan Poe in October. So I got this, The Fall of the House of Usher and Other Writings, and I picked it up primarily because it has essays at the back that he wrote, and I really wasn't aware of that. And one of his essays is The Philosophy of Composition, and it is available, again linked below. You can find it online as a PDF for free. And so if you're interested in The Raven and how he wrote The Raven, Philosophy of Composition is Poe basically talking ad nauseum about every single thing he thought about when he was writing The Raven, and he's using it. He's almost like a poetry doctor. He's going to tell you, his ego must be immense, because in this essay he tells you, this is how I wrote The Raven, and so this is my philosophy of composition. It's you will never find bigger egos, I don't think, than in the world of poetry, and that's saying a lot if you know about the world of prose. So he talks about how the first thing he considers is affect. And I laughed the minute I read that because I think that's what the younger generation, younger to me, generation calls all vibes. Because the Raven is all vibes, basically. Not very much happens. You don't know very much. The attention is on the protagonist, the speaker of the poem, who misses a dead woman. And to speak to that, there was something quite interesting that Poe wrote in this essay about that. He says, when it most closely allies itself to beauty, the death then of a beautiful woman is unquestionably the most poetical topic in the world. So there's nothing like a beautiful dead woman to get the juices flowing and bring beauty into a poem. And I see what he's saying. And you know, it's 2024 now. You know, things have changed. But truth be told, you know, weeping about someone who isn't available to you, whether, you know, whatever gender they are, it gets boring very quickly, and you better have some vibes in your poem, because otherwise you're just stuck with boredom and monotony. So then I went to Schuyler. And I'd never really thought about it. You know, one of those things you might find if you're trying to find a favorite poet of yours, a favorite poet sneaks up on you and isn't the poet that you notice at first. And what I mean by that is there are a lot of big names in poetry, and if you're a serious reader, as I guess any booktuber really is, you kind of look to those big books. So, you know, if you're reading in prose, it might mean a lot to you to really like Virginia Woolf. You might make a grand effort to read and reread her books, even if you don't really like them, until you've convinced yourself, or actually are, you know, really enjoying her. And I do that all the time, and it pushes me intellectually, for sure, in many different directions. But when it comes to what you love, it really happens naturally. I guess in a similar way to falling in love, maybe. You know, first of all, you're friends and you don't really notice each other, maybe, and you're just really comfortable with each other. And then one day someone in a comment asks you, who's your favorite? And you go, oh my God, is Schuyler my favorite? And it doesn't mean that I've read all of his poems, and it doesn't mean I know all about Schuyler. It's just that I bought this book a while ago and I keep coming back to it. And every time I open to any page, I really enjoy it. And it gives me something new. It calms me. It has me looking at the everyday life around me differently. It makes me think of language in a different way, and it just gives me that little bit of push to realize what world we're living in, the potential of it, and the quiet enjoyment of a master poet. So, but then again, you know, Eleanor will be Eleanor, and I will Google and I will research. And I didn't really research that much. I immediately came across this one essay on Jacket 2, link below. It's by William Corbett, A Few Words on James Schuyler. And I realized that my experience with Schuyler is definitely mirrored in other readers. And I'll give you an example of how he starts his article. A first-time reader of James Schuyler's poetry could have written my notes for this essay, and he lists the notes, and they are thus: clarity, loves a list, letter/diary, right now, right here, weather and light, addresses, exact addresses, names of friends. Yep. Set in New York. It's a lot of Manhattan. There's a lot of friends from the New York School of Poets. doesn't take himself too seriously. And sure enough, he really is the opposite of Poe in the sense that, let me find it here. What did they, and I'm still quoting from the article. He says he had zero interest in manifestos. Poetics? I can hear Schuyler burping a yawn. Just get on with it. If you don't have the gift, what's the point? He never taught, so he had no flag to pledge allegiance to and no forum in which to separate the right way of doing things from the wrong way. If the question of how he wrote poems mattered to him, he rarely let on. Now, I'm not saying that I dislike Poe. I really like Poe's The Raven, and the more I'm reading, and I'm going to start reading short stories as well. But it's not the comparison here is not good and bad. It's just to show you the family members in my poetry home are varied, and the more I introduce to my family, the more come in, the bigger the Thanksgiving meal. And it's a lot to talk about. So there's that. But then there's a question of Nahum Weinberg, and here I'm hesitating because I'll tell you, and I'll whisper it because you can whisper things in BookTube and no one else will hear except a few people who are meant to listen to it. But Nahum Weinberg I discovered because he was a New York Review of Books translation of his collection of selections of his many books. When did it come out? Translated from the Dutch by David Colmer, 2022. Yeah, so about 2 years ago, and it came up as a new release. And I talked about it in this video for about, 10 minutes. I went back and watched it. Yeah, I'm still proud of what I said. I'm still proud of that video. But he found it. He must have a Google alert on his name. And this has happened to me, I think 3 times. Poets have found me. Eleanor, who's talking about poetry off the top of her head. And that's scary. So he said thanks. And now if he finds me again, hello, Mr. Weinberg, I hope you're well. I've been enjoying your book. It happened before with Carl Phillips, which is, I guess, the highlight of my booktubing so far, that he sent me a message, which is really, really lovely. It also happened with another poet who I criticized harshly and wrongly, I think. And he very kindly commented, and I had a short discussion with him, and he set me right. I have to say that was such a productive little chat we had. And to this day, it's just so thrilling when a real poet talks to you. In any case, moving right along, what was I saying? Oh, yes, Nahum Weinberg. So, I don't know. I can't explain it, okay? Can't explain it. Don't ask me how. I love this stuff. It's poetry that doesn't make sense to me at all. Well, I would say with this book, 80% of it doesn't make sense. I would say a large percentage makes me look at language differently and question assumptions I make through language. Another part of it is curiosity, because there's a personality of the poet that glimmers through the poetry. And I like the glimmers of a personality like that. I am not a fan of confessional poetry. I like to work for my discoveries. And, there are poems here about relationships. But the poems here about everything. It's about everything, and most often it's not about anything you can describe. He uses great titles. For example, it has been going on for a long time. See, I just opened up to a page. It has been going on for a long time. It's the title. Sunrise is over. That's what it's like with something I know by heart. Help me to feel happy, so I can say it has been going on for so long now, I can't stop anymore. So slow in this landscape, where a single glance is enough for gods and gigantic goddesses. Slower than a life goes by. Ever see a horse running before it's fully light? My eyes linger on it, but how could it be enough? Along the lines of, if only I were freed from my imprisonment, it would be enough. And hadn't been given anything else, it would be enough. If the earth sets, let it set behind a head like the sun. Someone said to me, I want to hear you try to sing. That was when I stopped. I love it. Why? I don't know. I like the way it's set out. I like that it's in a book. It's from a book that's titled Gifts. It's about time. It's about living in the world. I like the question. I like a question, a mysterious question in my poems. I like the idea of enough. It would be enough. He is a Jewish poet, and he does have a book called Jewish Poems. This is not in that book, but the idea of it would be enough reminds me of a Jewish song I know, but that's much of a muchness. Sunrise is over. I just love that beginning. If sunrise is over, does that mean it's daytime? Or does it? Does it mean the sun won't rise anymore? It has been going on for a long time is the title. So I pick this up when I wake up in the morning and when I go to bed, and it's just like jumping into this world. And I gave it to a friend who's not really into poetry. What I like to do is when I really don't understand why I like something, or I don't understand why I don't like something, or I just don't understand something, and it's poetry, I give it to a friend. I said, just say whatever comes to your mind. And they're not self-conscious because they don't come from the world of literature. They don't come from the world of poetry. It's the most refreshing thing. They actually say what they think. And I was really surprised. My friend said, I really like this. He just kind of flipped through, and I really like this. So really, why? It's like, well, and he read a line. And I said, well, what do you think it means? And he said to help me, he said, I don't think it really, it has to mean something. It just is what it says. Now, this person is not a literature person at all, right? So if this person can say this and accept it, I really have to realize I need to step back from wanting to understand why everything, first of all, if you're interested in what a poem means, you really shouldn't be reading that much poetry. Maybe you should be teaching high school. But then again, as I said, I'm always looking for what poetry means. So what I'm doing, and hence the hate-love relationship I have with poetry, because I want to be the person who's not into poetry, who says it is what it is. But I'm the person who's into poetry, and when I say it is what it is, that's not enough for me, and I want to explain it to myself or to others. So I think a part of being a poetry reader is finding yourself a place in that, a balance within yourself. Otherwise, you'll drive yourself crazy. Yeah. So I realize now I didn't read anything by James Schuyler. I read the Nahum Weinberg. What do I feel like reading? In Wiry winter, it looks like this. The shadow of a bird upon the yard, upon a house, it's gone. Through a pane, a beam like a warm hand laid upon an arm. A thin shell, transparent blue, the atmosphere in which to swim. Brr, a cold plunge. The bird is back. All the same, to swim, plunging upward, arms as wings into calm cold. Warm within the act, treading air, a shadow on the yard. I won't continue, but you get an idea. He's sort of just describing what he sees, the shadow of a bird. Oh, it's gone through a pane of beam. And also, because a lot of it is set in Manhattan, if you've ever been in Manhattan in autumn or winter, ooh, this will bring it back. This will bring it back. And he's looking through his window and he sees, several times he sees the United Nations building. He describes that light so perfectly. He has these friends come in and out. He's what I wish I was, Schuyler. Just an easygoing kind of guy. But you see, his poems, the world of his poems is not, from what I am beginning to learn, is not the world of his true life. It never is, really. So, yeah. See, he has this one. It's called An East Window on Elizabeth Street. Among the silvery, the dull sparkling mica lights of tar roofs lie rhizomes of wet under an iris from a bargain nursery sky, a feeble blue with skim milk blotched on the falls. Junky buildings aligned by a child. That's very good, dear. A dental, carious and the color of weak gums. Rinse and spit, and blood-stained sputum and big gritty bits are swirled away. Have you ever? Okay, so those are two of my so you see, that's really different from what we're dealing with Edgar Allan Poe. Once upon a midnight dreary, while I pondered weak and weary over many a quaint and curious volume of forgotten lore. It's so, Poe is so theatrical. So theatrical, it must be read aloud. Schuyler and Wijnberg, you don't have to read them aloud to appreciate them. I think you do with Poe, definitely with The Raven, 100%. Anyway. Emily Dickinson. So Emily Dickinson is an example how do I put this? I know I should love her. I do. I think she's amazing. I'm never disappointed when I pick up a book, the book of her poems, and I pick up one of her poems and read it. But, she irks me. Her voice annoys me. Her rhythm annoys me. Her voice is very know-it-all. It is. It should be. She's Emily Dickinson. Her voice is very know-it-all. She's... all her poems are short and the slant rhymes put me on edge. The way she often skips the rhyme in the last line. So the last word of the last line often grates on my nerves. And of course, that's what makes her so great. But, sorry, that's Augie. But she can be pretty annoying, and she's pretty dark. And let's be frank, her dashes, Augie. Oh my goodness. Let's be frank, her dashes. Well, once you've read 100 of her poems, you can do without the dashes. It's enough already. Let's move on to some other form of punctuation. I'm being this way because I don't I don't ever want to like I've gone through years where I've like held up poets and said this is the best poet in the world, and I'm over that. I'm trying to bring levity to it, but of course here am I. I'm probably going to take a course on Emily Dickinson. I can't wait. I just bought this pocketbook. By the way, it's edited by Brenda Hillman, who is an American poet herself, and she's married to a great poet, Robert Hass. I love these sort of little bits and pieces about the poets' personal lives, and she has a lovely preface, an editor's preface, which I find to be just lovely. On a final note, isn't it interesting to think about how close, although not quite overlapping, the time periods of Edgar Allan Poe and Emily Dickinson are? Such different writers, hey? Okay, well, clearly I need to take Augie for a walk. I hope you've enjoyed my ramble. For what it's worth, let me know if if what you're reading, if you're reading these poets, and I look forward to talking more about the poets on my shelves. All the best, and don't forget, the only real property is the property of the mind. Bye.